everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we are really excited today to be here to be talking our deep dive into Bridgerton season 3, part 2. it's going to be an adventure. And I am Rachel Wagner. Dory's here.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, and Ann is here.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah. So if people want to hear my immediate reaction, I did a live stream on Thursday. It was a little bit of a vent session. You can check that out. I'll try not to be too repetitive of some of the things that I said there, but we're going to get more into the nitty gritty. We want to hear what you think about the season as a whole, about this part, and about the individual episodes. We just want to hear what you think. And yeah, let's dive in. So Anne, why don't we talk overall part 2? What's your overall take from this part?
Well, it started good. Episode 6 was, good.
Yeah.
And then when we got to the end of episode 6, there's the reveal, and then that's when things take a sharp turn to drama land.
Yeah.
Which everyone knows I don't like.
Yeah.
And I feel that they had an easy out and they didn't take it, and I don't understand why. And so it's like they kind of, that's episode 7 really kind of spoiled the part 2 for me. So episode 6 was just kind of, she was just in fear of, when it was going to be revealed. So, but yeah, it was good. And then it just went, and then the ending was good, but it kind of soured it. Yeah.
Yep. What do you think, Dory? Do you agree? Overall?
Yeah, I agree largely. I thought episodes 5 and 6 were strong. Particularly like the arc of 4, 5, and 6, I felt like were strong. I think for me, I have always had concerns, and from the second I saw the trailer, I have always had concerns that they were not going to reveal the Whistledown identity to Colin until too late. And I feel like that is what happened. In my opinion, that was one of my biggest fears and gripes, because then it just sours, like Anne said, it sours a lot of what comes next. I hate that there was tension at the wedding and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get more into that too, I'm sure. The wedding night, brutal. So, you know, I've I have just always had concerns that they were going to leave the reveal until the last possible second to Colin. And yeah, that seems to be what happened.
Yeah. I would go as far to say that I think episode 5 is a perfect episode of this show. I think
So
it was
good.
extremely strong. I think it was very well written. The whole, literally a ticking clock.
Mhm.
And not only do you start with just the joy of the announcements to the family, that was such a great scene. The whole scene with him sticking up for her, to her mother, obviously our sexy scene, all of that, great. And then just building tension through the course of the episode and their engagement party and all of that, perfect. I give them full credit. Way to go. And then so then episode 6 started super sweet, really enjoyed it. And then the whole scene where they're dancing in the church, love it. And she really should have told him then. I get it, it's hard, but she should have told him then.
It's better to come from your mouth than from someone else. Yep. Then you just get caught and it just looks so bad.
And I was worried that season 7 and 8 were going to suck, because I was scared because they didn't give those 2 episodes to critics.
Mm-hmm.
And which made no sense. If you would either give all 8 or you would give 4 and 4. And so the only reason that they wouldn't give those 2 episodes to critics, there's only 2 reasons. One, they knew they would be divisive and didn't want the reviews to be worse than they would be. which absolutely they would have been if they had released all 8. So that's the biggest reason. And that is, I'm convinced 100% that's the reason. Or they don't want a spoiler to get out, right? And there's only one kind of, I guess, spoiler that they might not have wanted to get, which we'll talk about. But so I was like, oh man. And then, it's just so frustrating. It's like they didn't understand the show that they are. And so often I see this with television, that they want to surprise, they want to subvert expectations. And so they do something that like pisses off all the fans, because it's like, this is not the show we signed up for.
Yeah.
You're not being more clever. You're not being smarter. You're not wowing us with your innovation. And like, I just don't understand how anybody is sitting around there being like, we want to have Colin and Penelope miserable at their wedding.
I know.
Like, how is that Bridgerton?
Yeah.
I know.
What?
It's not.
Like, just,
I know.
it just makes me so mad. I was just, like, I really do feel like I went through the stages of grief with this one. Like, I was so sad, and then I was so mad, and then I was just like, I don't know, just everything. Like, I can't believe that they thought that that was somehow swoon worthy to have Colin on the sofa for 2 episodes. What?
I know. Like near tears. Yeah. I mean, I think too, it's a larger issue with understanding, like, adapting romance to screen a lot of times. Because I think there's a big difference between like a soap opera, a melodrama, and a true romance. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that's what a lot of fans want, is like the romance to be front and center, and the romance to be kind of serviced appropriately. And I think people get frustrated when there are all of these side plots that overstuff the episodes and kind of take away from that main
because that was a problem with
story.
part 1. It was definitely overstuffed, but I was so invested in our main couple that I was like, it's fine, it's okay. Like, but so then when they ruin like the swoon-worthy moments, I mean, after episode 5, there's hardly anything.
I know.
Like, you just can't believe it. And everybody basically believes that there was a lot left on the cutting room floor, because Nicola and Luke talked about these bed scenes that they filmed and how much like fun they were and relaxing and blah, blah, blah. There was like almost no bed scenes.
No. I know. I think we were also spoiled by a really epic and amazing press tour, and all props to Luke and Nicola for like killing it. They looked great. They had amazing chemistry. They really sold the show. And I think that was a blessing and a curse. Like, a blessing because so many people watched, right? But then a curse because I think the expectations were sky high. And I'm sure they didn't see the last 2 episodes until like later in the press tour. So I'm sure they thought that there was going to be a lot there that wasn't there. And they expressed like how excited they were for fans to see those things.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it is such a bummer that we didn't.
And I don't understand. It's not like they are contained by airtime,
Totally.
You know, like a traditional network show. It's Netflix. Totally. They can have it be as long as they want. So if they have the footage, why don't you make it 9 episodes? Like, I don't understand.
I know.
Like, why only make it 8 episodes? This would, even though I would still be annoyed about the wedding, I would still be annoyed about so much stuff. If there was a 9th episode with them like being reconciled and just a fun episode to kind of end, it would have made it way more palatable, I think.
There has to be a big payoff if you're going to do something like that. There has to be a big payoff, because unless it just sours it, if you just all of a sudden try to just wrap it up and then just, it's like, you can't do that. I mean, after you did this, I mean.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcasts, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies. Here's what I think was the fatal flaw. So when in episode 7, when he gets mad, then he gets drunk, he comes back, he sees her in the street, they have this like fight, she says, "I love you," and then they have this kissing scene. And then he just puts her in the carriage, sends her home, "I'll see you tomorrow." Everything would have been a million times better if he had gotten in the carriage at that moment and they continued on with their little moment. Because and I've heard some people say like, well, like angry sex, that wouldn't be sexy, which whatever. But like, here's the thing. In the book, he finds out about Lady Whistledown and they have the mirror scene after, right?
Okay.
And he says this.
The carriage scene. The carriage scene.
Yeah. No, the mirror scene. It's after he knows about Whistledown that he says.
And so, yeah, they both are. Both
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And it says this. He says, "And if he let her walk out the door right now, he would never forgive himself. Maybe this then was the definition of love. When you wanted someone, needed her, adored her still, even when you were utterly furious and quite ready to tie her to the bed just to keep her from going out and making more trouble. This was the night. This was the moment. He was brimming with emotion and he had to tell her, he had to show her." We could have gotten that Colin. Yes. I mean, and that's what love is. When you're like, when you just still love somebody no matter what, like it's unconditional. And if he had told her, "I am mad at you, I feel betrayed, but I won't leave you," that would have been swoon worthy. That would have been romantic. That would have been love. Instead of pouting and ruining the wedding and then pouting and sleeping on the sofa for 2 episodes. It just, what?
Yeah, I do think they needed to be further along in the reconciliation process before that wedding happened and before the wedding night happened. Yeah. And I also think that like so in the books, they're mad at each other for a while, even after they get married. Like the Whistledown stuff is between them for a very long time. And I think it's balanced really well because he said that, because he had that moment where he said, "I love her anyway. Like, I know she lied. I know." And in the show, like she made a lot of bigger mistakes and he was going to stand by her side anyway. And I agree that I think that concept is really powerful and really important. And I also think one thing that has bugged me is that they have not, I also think, so an important aspect of Colin being so angry is that he's jealous. And they did not introduce writer Colin until part 2, really.
Yeah.
And where he talks about he's, now writing a manuscript and whatever. And I think that's really an important aspect too of his anger. Like he mentions it, but it feels kind of like
under
afterthought,
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just wish that they would have set up writer Colin earlier too, so you can understand why he's so angry. Like it's about what she wrote, and yes, it's about the harm that she caused, But it is also really about that this man is jealous that
Of a
a
woman.
woman is so successful doing the thing he wants to do. And
Yes.
that arguably is the part that he cannot get over, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the part that is sticking with him. And I just don't know if that's clear enough in the show.
Yeah.
Like the way the conflict was handled in some aspects just kind of, bugged me.
Well, and there's a great scene in the book where he comes and talks to Daphne and
Mhm.
says, what do I do about this? What about marriage? How do I make this work? And she talks to him about what marriage is really like and what love is really like. And they tried to kind of do that with the scene with Kate and Anthony.
Yeah, but it didn't really work.
No, it didn't
Yeah.
really work. No.
It would have been much more effective for Daphne since they had a similar marriage, anger, whole thing going
Yeah.
on. It was different, but more similar than Kate and Anthony, who seemed perfect. So,
Yeah. Well, and also, you could say that Simon and Daphne had a time where, they were sleeping in different beds and they were estranged and whatever. But Simon never let Daphne be alone. He was at every party. He even says that sleeping in separate beds is one thing, but not going to your families, and and so they worked through that as part of their marriage. It didn't spoil their wedding. It didn't, there were so many swoon-worthy scenes in season 1. That's why I still think it's the best. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I just can't believe that it's like they all of a sudden decided we're going to take the show like really seriously and we're going to make it not fun. And we're, I'm just like, what?
I'm going to say something that's probably controversial that if you want to take it out.
Please.
I feel like somebody in the writer's room, they wanted to take like a feminist route with it. And I think that ruined it. Them just having to drive it home so much. I think they just went too far and they just overdid it. And it just, yeah, that's just my thing that maybe
there's no doubt. And they in a way, I think they made it less feminist than the book. I really do. They made it less.
I mean, I think feminist, not feminist. I think that, an empowered woman can still have a partner and to have true partnership. And I think that is what people kind of love about the Colin and Penelope of it all, is because they have this friendship. They have like a true partnership. And I feel like in a lot of ways, it just didn't feel like they were partners in this part too. And I think that's what people really wanted, right? Like there was, I think a director in part 2 had said there's like an aspect in an interview or something, there's an aspect of like Penn and Colin against the world. And I think that's what everyone wanted, because of course, Penn doesn't need Colin to like fight her battle, to solve her problems. In fact, he can probably mess them up even more. But isn't it lovely to have someone, as an empowered woman, isn't it lovely to have someone in your corner while you make mistakes and while you do all these things? And it just didn't feel like he was really in her corner for a lot of this.
That's what I'm saying. If he had given this speech from the book that, that I'm utterly furious, but I still needed her, adored her, even when you were utterly furious. Like, that would have been so much more swoon worthy. And you've got it right there for you to adapt.
Right.
The other thing that I thought was underwhelming about the wedding was I thought her dress was kind of underwhelming. She looked beautiful. She's a beautiful woman. But I just think that her clothes this season have been so great. And so for her to have a fairly muted dress without any sparkle, and I understand the show is not historically accurate, but why pick the one dress to not go a little over the top?
Yeah, it's very simple.
Yeah, it really was.
It was very simple. I mean, I liked it a lot. I thought it was beautiful, but it was very simple. I mean, I've been in love with everything she has worn this season. Like from her nightgowns to her wedding dress, I have been
Yeah.
very, very into. But it definitely, I mean, the wedding looked over the top, like them walking down the aisle with all those flowers. It was
Mhm.
gorgeous. But
Yeah.
yeah, the dress was more simple. I didn't
Yeah.
mind it though.
Yeah. And we also get in episode 7, we get the introduction of this idea of Benedict and the threesome. And we get a lot of that in 8. That was like more sexy time for this threesome. And I mean, I think Lady Tilly has just been like, I could care less about her. I mean, I think the whole idea behind this was like, yes, of course, Benedict exploring his sexuality, but like I feel like he already knew that. He even says, like, I had been with a man, like we'd seen him with a man in season 1. And so I don't know, it just felt like I feel like it's pretty obvious that that's how they are going to introduce Sophie. That Sophie is going to be in a threesome. He's going to meet her at the masquerade ball, which they talk about, and she'll be masked, and then he won't realize that she's also part of this grouping that he's a part of, and the whole thing with like he's basically going to be Lady Tilly and realize that he's in love with her and not realize that she's the same person that he had at the ball. And anyway, I think that's pretty obvious what they're going to do, that they're going to use that threesome element, but it was just like, I don't know.
I think it has to have a point.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I can't really see what the point was this time, since we already knew he'd been with a man.
Right.
So if it's going to have a point going forward, I think that would make sense.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear.
I mean, it also took up a lot of time.
It took up a lot of time.
Cutting back to the threesome.
Yeah.
And I was like, good for Benedict. But like, can we get back to Pollen, you know?
To our main people here.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm also like, is a threesome the best way to explore bisexuality? Like, is that what we're doing? It feels very like on the nose.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's true.
I was kind of like, is this the best way?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was really bland. It just wasn't that, I don't know. It just didn't do much for me. But I mean, I would put money down that that's what's going to happen. She's going to end up being a third, and he'll realize that he's in love with her. And then, oh, you're the person from the masquerade all along.
There you have it.
There you go. I'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Baker Publishing Group and author Jenny Erlingson and her debut novel, Her Part to Play. Desperate for extra income, Adane accepts a last-minute job as a makeup artist for a movie that's filming in her small Alabama hometown. But the money hardly seems worth having to face the actor who got her fired from her last job in Hollywood. Sparks fly on and off the set, but will either of them follow the pull of their hearts? We know you will love this swoon-worthy romance with the relationship between the movie star and the makeup artist. Definitely check it out wherever you purchase your books or use our affiliate link below. That's Her Part to Play by Jenny Erlingson. We know you'll love it. I did think that there were some nice moments in episode 8. I mean, it is fun when she basically tells everybody that, I mean, the confessions were nice. And when she tells everybody that she has all the money that she can pay Cressida.
So good.
That was fun.
Portia's like, and you've had me eating boiled potatoes for months on end and you're rich. She's so mad. I'd be mad too, to be fair.
Yeah. That was fun. What do you think of Francesca and John's wedding? How did you feel about that, Anne? What do you think?
I just think their whole relationship is very interesting. I'm definitely not one of the like super fans of like this silent romantic thing because I just think it's weird.
Yeah.
I've seen like lots of people mooning over it on social media. That's definitely not me. I mean, I thought the best thing I thought it was very, as I've said before, I think they're pretty boring. I thought it was pretty boring. I did really like what he said to Violet. I thought that was the best part. I thought that was really sweet. Just because I really like her. I thought that was very nice.
Mm-hmm.
But she did not seem to be taken with that kiss at all. Seemed to have no effect. That was the only thing I took. So.
I think what they were trying to do was to make this relationship as transactional as possible. But they, wanted to give it like a little, they didn't want to make it like sad, but they were trying to make it as transactional as possible, especially with the reveal, the way they handled that reveal, so that it could be like, oh, this is nice, this is fine, but boom,
here's the spark.
This is it, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they're kind of taken off guard that people liked John and Francesca as much as they did. I think they were trying as much as they could to make it kind of like, and yeah.
I was surprised to see people's reaction.
I was too.
Twitter. I was like, people like this?
I really like John. I think they're cute.
I just thought it was just different.
Don't you think they were trying to kind of...
I think different is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we have so many different portrayals of love on this show. Why not a quieter one? You know, it might not be your favorite, but I think it's good. I like John. I mean, and I texted Rachel when I watched and I was like, oh no, I really like John. Like, I know that he's silent, but I really like him.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do, because if they, how long they keep him around.
I know. Well, see, that's what I'm now worried for. I'm like, what? I guess not worried isn't the right word. I'm very intrigued to see how they are going to make this happen and make this work, because it changes a lot.
Yeah, it really does.
Well, it's really tricky. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like just because they're like a more quiet couple doesn't mean they don't deserve like a real wedding. I don't know. I just felt like it could have been.
I know, that's true.
It felt a little bit Vegas-y to me, like the Bridgerton version of a Vegas wedding, like drive through.
But I do feel like it fit them, because they're not like over the top and showy. They're very to themselves and quiet. So I thought it kind of fit their relationship, even though it's not like interesting really to watch. But I thought that it fit them as a couple. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. They could have had like been in the garden, or it just all felt a little like.
Yeah, they could have at least been outside, like only
at
least be outside. That would have been a little bit better.
But let's talk about this Michaela reveal. So we can speak to this a little bit more than Dory and I, because we've read the book. Ian is not as much with this, but the thing that's, I guess, I have a problem with is there's two things. First is that I don't have a problem with gender swapping. If they end up gender swapping Sophie, I'm fine with it, because Sophie's plot there's more whimsy to the plot. So making it more of a little bit more of a fairy tale with a happy ending and in a gay relationship at that time, I'm fine with. It works more for Sophie's character to do that. But for Michael's character, gender is pretty important to his character. He inherits John's title and land when John dies, which you obviously would not do at that time as a woman. So he has that guilt. He goes to India for 4 years because he feels so guilty about it, and he doesn't. And so then he comes back and is only then like tippy toes into his long-standing love for Francesca. And this the thing that I also don't love about the way they handled it is that she can't even remember her own name when she sees Michaela. And yeah, like, beautiful woman, get that. But that's just not Francesca and Michael's relationship. She doesn't even hardly notice him. She doesn't say she loves him until after they're married. Like, she is very hesitant, about the whole thing. And so what you've done is you've just basically eliminated Michael as a character, and you've replaced him with a different character with a similar name. And since I don't know anybody that's a fan of the books that doesn't have When He Was Wicked in the top 3 in their ranking, it is definitely one of the most popular books. And Michael is one of the most popular dudes in the world of Bridgerton. So I don't love that choice. I'm sorry. I don't love the choice of removing a very popular character and replacing her with a totally different character and a character arc. It's just not the same. And I don't love that. I'm not happy about it. And I don't think you're a bad person if you are sad that a favorite character from a favorite book has been eliminated. I don't know, Dory, how do you feel? What's your take?
I think I certainly understand why Michael fans are upset, because he is such a popular character and that is a popular book. I think I've read all the Bridgerton books and I like them. I am not that attached to any of them. So I feel a lot more open to changing the stories. I'm really surprised that they have stuck as close as they have to the books in a lot of instances. My expectation the first season was very close to the book, but my expectation was always that like they would mix things up and change things, and I am generally okay with that. Like I definitely have an open mind to how this is gonna go. But I certainly understand why some book fans are upset, but we cannot neglect the fact that some of these people are insane. Like, have you been on Shonda's Instagram? Like, listen, this is a TV show and these are books and this is entertainment, and people are being crazy about this. Like, I understand being upset and being bummed. Like, I get that. If this was my favorite Bridgerton book and Michael was something I was waiting for years for the Michael reveal, and this happened and I was expecting something else, I can understand being bummed. But like, there are fans that are being crazy homophobic and crazy racist, and it's like, you guys, relax. This is a TV show. Like, we're never going to get everything we want out of this series. I think season 3 has shown that to a lot of people.
Yeah, and they have been pretty fast and loose with the adaptations. I mean, season 2 was very different than the book.
Very different.
Very different. Yeah. But I feel like there's one thing, but then completely eliminating a lead character is a lot.
I always felt like this was going to happen with at least one of the books. I never thought that they were going to be this true with the pairings, and I'm surprised it took this long for them to change it up, to be completely honest. I never thought that they would. Like, this is not, I mean, I have been really surprised that they have stayed so true to the books in a lot of instances. I just didn't think they would. But I know that some people really want that. Like, and I understand that desire to read a book and want to see it exactly as you read it on the screen. I totally get that and wanting that. I just never saw that for Bridgerton based on the world that they built. Like, so much of it is different,
Like, I am not a traditionalist when it comes to adaptations, but I do think there's a difference between, like, how did you change this, tiny detail versus eliminating an entire character. I feel like that's kind of different. But yeah, obviously, when you're being hateful and unkind, you're just hurting your own case. You're not helping with an argument. You're just making yourself look foolish and stupid, and it just makes them buckle down and want to do it even more.
It's also a TV show. Like, come on. We love it. And I love Bridgerton. Listen, like, I was crazy waiting for this season to drop, like crazy. But at the end of the day, I mean, I just think some of the reactions are over the top. You know, we have yet to see what Francesca's story is going to be. And I feel sorry for everyone who's like bummed and Michael was their fave. I totally get that feeling. But I mean, I also think we need to relax a little bit, right?
Fair. That's fair. I mean, do you have any thoughts about that, Anne? About
I just, as a person who's never read any of the books, I just feel like from the TV show itself, I just feel like Benedict was a more obvious choice because, like you said, we've already seen him with a man in previous seasons. So I just kind of felt like that choice would have made more sense. Obviously, I didn't know anything about Michael until we recorded part one, and Natasha and Rachel were talking about him. And I was like excited. I was like, well, he sounds really awesome. And so even though I haven't read the book, I still was like, felt disappointed. I was like, well, I guess I'll never meet him because you guys changed the whole thing. So I just feel like Benedict would have been a better choice. I don't know. It feels kind of like they just did it like just randomly because it just feels, I don't know, it just feels like he just would have been such a seamless option. But
yeah, well, and it also,
I don't know.
It kind of hurts if you're having this sweet, subtle, soft wedding between John and Francesca for like her biggest spark, her biggest reaction of the episode to be when she meets Michaela. Like that is kind of a little bit of a bummer too.
I didn't like that choice.
Yeah.
Whether it was a man or a woman, I just was like, I really don't like how it feels as someone who has been who has been cheated on. It's not like she's cheating, but it's like I don't like the idea of her just marrying someone and then like thinking, fantasizing, daydreaming about someone else the whole time. Really don't like how that feels. Just
where in the book,
personal thing, but I didn't like that. I didn't like the introduction. I didn't.
Yeah, I agree. In the book, it literally takes her years to even think about the idea of being with anybody but John.
It feels like, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I was taken back. I was like, well, they're really trying to show us the spark. I just feel like this is not the right moment to show this because it's really taking away from John when you're literally making her so, it's so obvious that her eyes were open and there was a spark, but I didn't like they'll have to change, but then I don't want them to change it. Like, it's like she would have to either, if she really felt that way, she would probably do something with her while she's still married to him, or want to do something with her, or be flirting with her and things that she shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
So it's just, I just didn't like it. Really was like, eesh.
Yeah. I'm very much in a position of like, let's see how it plays out, because this, in so many ways, is already very different from the book. So, I mean, I will have to wait and see what the writers come up with for this story. And I mean, I want to believe that they have a little bit of a story fleshed out, right? And that it's not completely random. And they do have some thought behind why they chose Francesca and why they chose this. Like, and I'd love to hear those thoughts.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
I'd feel more confident in the writers if they hadn't completely skunked it.
And there's the problem.
In 7 and 8 for calling it Penelope.
I know.
I mean, they've lost my trust.
Well, I think the other thing happening here, and like Anne and I have actually talked about this on our Mahogany episodes, but I think that this is like an industry issue. This is an entertainment issue, and there's just a real hunger for romance content. Like there's a reason that it is the most popular genre fiction globally. There's a
Like,
reason
by a
it is
lot.
so, by a lot,
Yeah.
like by a mile.
It's
And
basically
there's
saving publishing right now, the romance genre.
100%, and is
Yeah.
so disrespected, even though it is
Yeah.
saving publishing. And I think because of that, we neglect the fact that there's a real hunger for romance stories in all ways, like books, movies, TV
Yeah.
shows. And I think we are all, as romance fans, we are starved for it. And what
Yeah.
happens when you're starved for something? You become obsessed, and like all of your hopes are tied up in a show like Bridgerton because it's
True.
doing it better than any other show, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So what happens is like you get all of your hopes and your interests tied up in this one show, and then when it to you fails in some way, it's even harder because there are no other options. Like we're going to be sitting around waiting for 2 more years for another Bridgerton series, and it just is such a bummer to me because I wish that there were more options out there. Like I wish we were talking about 5 other romance shows right now too, so that the sting of this would feel less acute. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like we'd all feel a little better if there were other options, but we have been waiting for this specific show for so long. And so it just bums me out that there aren't other options, and that
like
the lesson the industry still has not learned from Bridgerton. It's not build up anticipation for Bridgerton for 2 years. It's make more of them. Make more romance shows.
I mean, the closest that I can think of is you've got Outlander, which they're so inconsistent in the, we're waiting for the second half of season 7. Like, what is going on? Like, you've got Outlander
is
you
done
have When
so
Falls the
well.
Heart.
It's like, how can I still be this invested, and like you guys still like are telling this story so well about a couple that's been together so long? Like I don't understand how they do it. It's like, wow, you guys they're just
Outlander.
Good. Yeah, because their chemistry is so good. But like, even though they've been together for years, you're still invested. They're not just ruining it like Virgin River and just like making up junk.
You're right.
It's like they do a good job with that show.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. So we did. I mean, the ending was, I think, pretty satisfying, and I was happy that she had this. I mean, she had the reveal, and she has her moment where the wallflower isn't the wallflower anymore. She also has that speech that she gives to him. You don't know what it's like to be a woman. That was good. That was like the good side of the feminism coming in there.
That was.
Yeah, and him finding her letters, realizing that he always loved Lady Whistledown and Penelope. That was good. But I just wish that I wish he'd gotten on that in that carriage and started the reconciliation process earlier. And I wish that he had gone for it when he sees her looking all sexy.
Yeah.
When he goes in to get the blanket.
For sure.
And or at least kissed her or something.
I know.
I thought he was going to, and then I was like, oh no, he's gonna be mad.
and
go be mad.
So his final speech was very sweet, and I enjoyed it. Him saying that he can't believe that somebody so brave would love him. That was a nice moment.
That was good.
I liked that. I just needed more of it. That should have happened. That should have happened like before the wedding.
And that's what I meant, Rachel, when I said I felt like they had an out. I felt like he saw her on the street, they kissed, he put her in the carriage. I'm like, you guys had an out here. It could have been over. And you just went right by it and just destroyed everything.
So I've been reading a lot of these fan fictions, and I'll continue to. If you're listening and you have a fanfic, put in the comments.
Send it to us.
I want to read it. I'm loving them. I really, sincerely, I really do enjoy them. And so put them in the comments. We want to hear it. We want it. And so I did a little Twitter thread where I gave how, if it was me and I was a writer, this is what I would have done and what I think would be better. So I'm going to read it to y'all. And you can say in the comments whether you think it's trash and I don't know what I'm doing, or you think that this would have been good. So here we go. Should have happened is he finds out she's Lady Whistledown, gets upset, they fight. Then he walks down by the brothel and is tempted by the ladies and realizes he hasn't been a saint either. They have their fight in the street, kiss because he's worried about her, and then he goes inside the carriage with her. Then he says, I'm still angry with you, but I love you anyway. That will never change no matter what happens in our marriage. Then the blackmail and the various confessions to the family members happen over the next 2 days, including to the queen. The wedding does not happen until episode 8. In the meantime, Colin finds the letters and he realizes he has not only always loved Penn, but he has always loved her as Whistledown, and her voice is special. As soon as he realizes this, he runs to her, tells her he's sorry, and that she's the bravest woman he's known. Then they get married, and it's a happy occasion, and the queen attends the wedding and smiles at the union. The next day, she writes her first entry as Penelope Bridgerton and is off to Paris for their honeymoon. No sofa sleeping involved. Also, Sophie is the gender swap for Benedict, and Michael is introduced to Francesca. And there we go. That's what I think. Dory, what do you think?
I like it. I like your version. Thumbs up.
Yay.
Yeah, I
And
definitely
you like
agree. That
it?
would have been so much better.
Yeah.
Because I want
Right?
them to be happy at their wedding. So I think
I
it should have
know,
been
me
at the end
too.
after the stuff was like more resolved. And so
And like it's more swoon worthy because he realizes sooner that he loves both Penn and Lady Whistledown.
yeah.
He tells her, and then that whole all of that process, instead of it being antagonistic, is collaborative.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the part, right? Like you can still have conflict in the marriage without him saying like, you tried to entrap me. Like that was crazy.
That was the worst.
Yeah.
The worst. Yeah. We didn't need that.
And it was like me versus you instead of us versus the problem, which is they talk about a lot of marriage issues is you need to not be against each other. It needs to be both of you versus the issue.
Right.
Especially because that's what her mother had said that she had done. And so that was just, he would never say that. He would never do that.
I know. But also shout out to the Featheringtons because they were possibly my favorite part of season 3. All of it. All of it.
And it was fun that Penelope gave her sisters this ball.
I thought that was nice.
It was cute.
She did not have to do that. That was very nice.
Yeah.
And they were like genuinely happy for her when they got married. And there was a lot of repair with the Penelope Portia relationship and kind of an acknowledgement of the ways that they're similar and the ways that they both need to be better. I liked that. I thought all of that was done really well.
And they do change so that Penelope has a son as the heir, where in the book,
Lord Featherington.
In the book, she has a daughter, Agatha.
First
child. And like that's the kind of thing I don't care about. Like I'm not an adaptation like it has to be exactly the same. Like you can make little changes, but I don't know. To me,
that
completely
that was another thing that felt random. I was like, why are you making it seem like they all had a baby at the same time? I'm like, weren't they pregnant? Like, why is
the timeline will make your head explode. Trying to figure out the timeline will absolutely make your head explode.
I was like, I don't understand.
I know, because I'm like, are all these babies the same age? How?
I know. They all look the same. So I was like, I don't know.
Well, they all got pregnant right around within like a week of each other because they were at the ball when they were all getting after the inserts speech. The sisters were getting all sick and everything, so you figure it was right around then, and that's when they had. It would be like a week later that Colin and Penelope had their first encounter. So everybody basically feels like she was a one and done.
She needed no I guess there's no birth control, so she didn't have to go off birth control and take prenatal vitamins and do all
Wow. That mirror scene was pivotal in a lot of ways.
It was like bam, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
That's all it took.
And there is a whole section in the book with Colin talking about how there's so many 8-month babies born in the town, and how it would be fine. So yeah, it's fine. But it was it was cute, and overall, I do think Penelope's journey as a character to get to this sort of strong place was nice. I just wish they hadn't had to sacrifice like so many swoon-worthy moments and kind of sacrifice Colin for like a big chunk of the season. And just, I don't know, I just don't understand why they made some of the decisions they made. And
Yeah.
I felt pretty disappointed by it. And so, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I do feel like they sacrificed Colin, and that
Yes.
bugs me because the show is called Bridgerton and it's supposed to
Yep.
be about these Bridgerton siblings. And so, like, I know
Yeah.
Penelope is the star and Nicola Coughlan is amazing. Like, I love her so much. I think she is
Yeah.
so good in this role, but I did want
Yeah.
more for
Yeah.
our dear Colin. I wanted more
Mhm.
than him, saying she entrapped him and messing up the blackmail and like sulking.
Yeah.
I wanted more for
I was
for
so
him.
mad at him being on that sofa. I just could not believe it.
I
Like,
know.
what?
I
You
know.
kidding me? Because again, when the Duke was on the was basically on the sofa, they they were already been married for quite a bit, and they had the conflict, but they'd already had so many swoon-worthy scenes that it was fine. It wasn't the wedding night.
Yeah, that really makes it tougher to swallow. It's
Yeah,
like this is their wedding night. Like
yeah.
I know. Oh my
that's
gosh.
supposed to be peak Bridgerton, okay?
Ah, so
Oh,
frustrating.
man. I
But
know.
what are you gonna do? Ah, that's why I'm a movie person, not a television person. Because almost every television show has let me down. There are very few that have really nailed the landing for me. They almost all either kind of peter out, so I lose interest, or they end up sucking. And this isn't sucking, but the writing, they try too hard to subvert expectations. They try too hard to surprise me, and that's not what I want. I
Yeah.
and I mean I
I
it's
don't
so
think that's what romance fans want. People like
no,
romance
No.
because
no.
they like tropes, they like the
Yes,
predictability. They're safe.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I know. I mean, I do think Bridgerton sometimes has trouble landing the plane at the end of these seasons
Yeah.
because, like, season two is my personal favorite. I love Anthony and Kate. But, like, when they got to him all the way down the aisle about to marry Edwina, I was like, this is insanity.
You've gone too far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I was like, this is insanity and this is so unnecessary. I feel like they have trouble landing the plane
Yeah.
sometimes,
Which it's a shame because the books land.
They do.
They land.
They do.
So
I
they've got it
know.
mapped out right there.
I
Like
know. That's
what?
what makes it hard. It's like when you literally have a map in front of you, it makes it hard for you to just screw it up. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Well, I guess we should end by saying, do we all kind of agree that we do think it'll be Benedict's season coming up? They
I
did.
think it will be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because, yes, I wasn't sure until the masquerade comment. And then I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, I think Benedict is next.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there we go. Let us know if you're listening what you think of the season. Maybe you liked it more than we did, episode 7 and 8. Maybe you hated it more than we did. Let us know. Tons of Bridgerton content all over the place. And thank you so much, ladies, for doing this. I really appreciate it. Especially got up early for me, and I appreciate it. Uh, Dory, where can people follow you?
You can follow me at All the Feels Pod on Twitter.
And Anne?
You can follow me, AW Scott 21 on Instagram and Twitter.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod, and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. You can also find us on TikTok. If you are watching it on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group, and we're having our watch along this week with Wendy Stewart. We're going to be watching her movie that she wrote, Well Suited for Christmas, which is so good. And so you want to be a part of the Patreon, And then we have our merch store where there's tons Hallmark inspired, romance inspired merch. So check that out. And thanks again, ladies. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.